What is going on, all you awesome superhero aficionados? This is the Heroes of Mutants podcast, your number one source of superhero talk. I just want to give sincerest apologies to all of you because we've been MIA for 6 months. Just it's been so hard. Eric was doing his own thing and had to drop out, unfortunately, from doing Heroes of Mutants. Obviously, still on as a reoccurring guest, and it's just been so hard trying to figure out scheduling and timings. But Jimmy is actually shooting a film right now, so
Yep.
huge ups to him for doing something for doing his dream and doing something he's always wanted to do. So massive ups and massive respect to him, and hope that's all going according to plan and everything is going well. But and everything with me too, because actually one of the things is like what really had me kind of drop off with this, or like me kind of not really focusing so much, was during right before Christmas, my grandma actually passed away. So that's
Mm.
like where, and then especially with the holidays and me, I live up north and I'm far away from my family and no one's around me. So it's like I had to fly back right away. And then when I found out that she was actually sick and she was in hospice, or I mean, she's been sick for a while, but then she was in hospice and I was supposed to fly back on the night, and then my mom called me in the morning saying that she had passed away. So it's just like I had to hurry up, scramble, try to see if I can get at least a couple days away from work. And I was supposed to go see her. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But um, it's pretty. One of the things is like about just like the kind of inspiration and the how much like family truly means to you. And from the very beginning, that was always my grandma. So I actually forgot about this, and I doubt anybody knows this, but my grandma's actually the reason behind my name, because my
Mm.
mom, she wanted to name me Matthew, which actually would have been cool with me because obviously Matt Murdock, so I would have been all right with that. But my grandma actually had a vision or a dream of a baby being born named Nicholas, and I think that was the name she liked because of Saint Nicholas. So she
Mm.
right away she ran to my mom and was like, "Oh, like I had this dream about a baby being born named Nicholas, so you should name him Nicholas." And she's like, "Oh," mom's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, why not?" So obviously that inspiration and that love was always going to be there. That connection was always going to be there from the start between us. So, abuela, descansa en paz y te amo mucho, and hope you're cracking open a lot of cold tecates with grandpa up there in heaven, and miss you guys so much. So,
Yeah.
and what about you, man? How's everything been? I know you and I haven't really connected that much and seen like all the kids and all the good stuff going on IG.
Yeah, I've been crazy. Been busy. But yeah, I just took a step back from from a lot of stuff
Yeah,
actually, just to focus really on family. I wanted to focus on family, help my wife with the business she's building out, and then me with my own media business too. So just took a step back from these things, and also I had noticed like I hadn't even gone to, like, the movies with Lily in such a long time, with
yeah,
my wife.
exactly.
So I was just like, "You know what? Like, let's just take a break and kinda, like, slow down a bit because we were just always moving, especially with 3 kids, that'll happen. Um,
Yeah,
and and yeah, it's been nice to be able to take a step back. I've been, uh there was a few weeks there where Lily and I would actually go to the movies every week, and we would just drop off the kids at daycare and we would go. And it's been nice. It's been nice to just take a step back and kind of refocusing that, and been able to kind of share more of my passions now also with like my kids and with Lily, even like obviously the movies and all the superhero stuff, but like sitting with my son and just like playing through like a new game, or even like reading comic books. I took him to his first movie, watched the Super Mario movie, and just yeah, just enjoying time really, and just spending it with my family. So that's really what I've
yeah,
been
man.
doing. Just wanted to refocus and reprioritize.
Yeah. Well, it's family. Everything looks beautiful, and just seeing all you guys on IG and all
I
that, man,
appreciate it.
it's a beautiful thing to see. And I'm really grateful you're here. So,
Yeah.
with all that being said, again, sorry it took us so long, but just we're finally back. Like Michael Keaton, we're back in action. So let's get this started. So would say probably some of the biggest news, and obviously this isn't anything that was new. It was actually like right at the end of 2022 when this was revealed. But it was announced that James Gunn and Peter Safran were named to co-chairman and co-CEOs of DC Studios, formerly known as DC Films. Gunn is going to serve in as leadership and creative development, while Safran will handle business/production aspects. This pretty much means the DCEU is now dead, with Gunn and Safran calling their shared universe the DCU. Gunn announced many projects that were in the pipeline. Sorry, give me a second. I got to pull it up. But There's going to be a lot of they're going to be overseeing movie shows and animated as well. For movies, we have Superman Legacy. Gunn is actually writing the script, and I think this is going to be the first film that's going to get made. And we're probably going to hear news of casting coming very soon. Obviously, Henry Cavill is not going to be back anymore. The Authority. Gunn is also outlining this film, which will be based on Wildstorm characters, and the DC imprint will be brought into the main universe with this live action movie. Sounds cool. One of the biggest things I was excited for is The Brave and the Bold. Obviously, this is going to be a Batman and Robin story, and the Robin is going to be Damian Wayne. So I think this is a pretty cool development and a cool change to anything that we've seen in terms of live action. I think they wanted to really hone in on that father-son aspect because they are obviously biological father, biological son. So I think that's something that's going to be really cool. Yeah, and Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is super cool, so I really can't
Yeah.
wait for that. Television shows that they announced too is Creature Commandos. I think that's going to be pretty cool. Don't know much about it. Waller, Lanterns, that sounds pretty cool. Paradise Lost, and Booster Gold. So there's going to be obviously that's a huge shakeup to the DC world and the DC mythos and everything that we know, especially like the path that they were on. But with all that being said, does this leadership change and these projects, does that give you faith that DC Studios will build a successful shared universe like Marvel Studios did with the MCU?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with like the success Gunn has had both at Marvel and DC. I think he has a good vision for these characters and knows when to take them seriously and when not to. And
Definitely.
I think that's the important part of just comic books in general. It's like understanding the characters well enough to create these stories. So
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be really good. I mean, we saw what he did with Suicide Squad, so much better than the first Suicide Squad, and obviously we've seen what he's done with Guardians of the Galaxy and with the third one coming out next week or this week.
this,
It's
this
gonna
week,
be
yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be
Today.
yeah, it's gonna be really cool to see. So yeah, it's insane. It's insane to think about them kind of taking the helm. But I think them focus. We saw how good it worked with the MCU with Kevin Feige. When you have one person that's actually a fan of these stories calling the shots, you're of course not all fans are going to be happy, but you're going to get more cohesive stories, and you're going to have sure a shared universe, but you'll be able to kind of put these characters into different places, be it the shows, the movies, or apparently even the imprints, the comic books themselves. So
Exactly.
it's something they should have been doing for a long time, and they obviously tried with the DCEU, but that just felt so rushed. And now I think he's gonna focus on these lesser known characters in DC and is gonna bring them into the fold. And we saw like also his success with Peacemaker. That's a lesser known character, and
Yeah.
that show was awesome. It was
Yeah, it
it
was great.
was it was action packed. It was hilarious, and
It was very
he
sad at times too. Really
yeah,
tugged on
very
those
sad,
emotions.
very
Like,
real. Great casting and great cameos throughout it too. So that's what we want to see from these superhero movies and shows. So I think we're in good hands. I
definitely.
think the worst part of it was probably them announcing everyone that they're like cutting out, right? All the actors that are not going to return.
Yeah,
Like Henry
that
Cavill, I
was
loved him as Superman.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we'll see.
And
He
I
obviously has
think
a different story in mind.
that was honestly the hardest part for me because obviously, especially just with everything, like it was Henry Cavill was coming back. We were all speculating there's definitely got to be
Hmm.
a Superman cameo somewhere in Black Adam because The Rock, that was like the thing he was building up towards,
Hmm.
and all the shots he was taking at Superman in all the marketing and leading up to the release of Black Adam. And then when it finally happened and you heard that classic John Williams score, we're like, oh, the man. And then he announced on social media. And that was because Warner Brothers told him to announce his return. And
Yeah,
this whole thing on like, hey guys, this is a small sample of things to come. And then it was like not even a month later was when it was revealed that he wasn't returning. And not only
yeah.
that, but even just the way he handled it was just like so Superman because he didn't even though he could have been very bitter and upset, he was like, hey, I just didn't fit the vision that James wanted to tell with Superman and the direction he wanted to go with this character. So like, and I know that the weird thing was like they had said or there was alluded that maybe there was a role somewhere for him in the pipeline somewhere down the line. Like I'm
Mm.
like, I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like I was like so stoked for it. And granted, I mean, with that being said, James Gunn is a perfect person to helm and build up this universe. It's just one
Yeah.
of those things. Like I was so excited. I think out of everybody, I was probably just I was really down on that just because I'm like, man, like we were. This is all we had this, and it was right here, and then all of a sudden it's just gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think they were talking about Shazam for a while there, and they're gonna bring back that actor. They obviously had Shazam 2 just come out,
Mm.
which I really liked. I thought it was fun. It's just as campy and cheesy as the first one. I know it didn't get really good reviews, but I think that was also coming. It was like the next DC movie to come out after this whole thing came out that they were changing
Yeah, so it was like
leadership and stuff. Yeah,
less incentive for people to go.
yeah,
That's like something too. I'm like, what about these with Aquaman and obviously Flash is gonna serve a little bit as this reboot. So
yeah,
that was what that made sense. But it's just like Shazam and Aquaman. What's gonna happen with these films, or what? Like, there's not really gonna be a reason for people to go watch them.
yeah. We'll see. So for Shazam, it was one of the movies I went to go watch with my wife, and we had fun watching it.
Mm.
It's not necessarily a movie I would go back to theaters to watch again. I'd probably just watch it when it comes out at home. But I thought it was fun. It's funny. Really enjoyed it. It's a good. They do Shazam well. At times, I feel like the acting is a little off. Where the I forgot his name. The guy that plays Shazam as an adult.
Zachary Levi.
Yeah, Zachary Levi. I feel like he didn't really like study the mannerisms of the guy that plays Barton, the kid, the teenager.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
so at times it's not really believable that it's the same person. It feels almost like Zachary Levi's portrayal as an adult is more childish than the teenager's portrayal. And yeah, so that was something we noticed, Lily and I noticed, but like that it wasn't believable that it was the same person. But regardless, as a superhero story, as a family oriented superhero story, is pretty funny, and we enjoyed it.
that's honestly one of the biggest criticisms I've heard was that I think it's Asher Angel who plays
Yeah,
the teenage Billy Batson,
yeah,
and that it's off between him and Zach Levi, where they're like he seems actually a little bit more mature and a little bit more responsible, but then once he switches to Shazam, like Zach Levi dials it up to like him being completely a kid or like him having like that kind of like demeanor and and
yeah.
that mentality. So I know like a lot of people said like it's a little bit off, or that's something that they have noticed too. I actually haven't seen it because I was waiting, and then I realized like I think like starting a couple weeks ago it was only playing like once a day, and then I just
Hmm.
like starting this week it's not playing in theaters anymore, so I
Yeah,
just didn't get a chance to see it. I really wanted to. I mean, like Shazam is a cool character, and I think they did a great job with that first one, and then I was really looking forward to seeing how they're building off of the Greek mythology. Obviously, the two villains are daughters of. They're daughters of who is it again? I think of Atlas.
Atlas.
They're
Yeah,
daughters of Atlas. So I was looking forward to that. Can't wait to see it on streaming. But I'm just like wondering too, like, is this going to be the end of
yeah,
it? Or are they
yeah.
going to be bringing back Zach Levi?
Yeah.
And
I mean, Zachary Levi is friends with Gunn, so it. I
that's got to
mean,
help some a
yeah.
little bit.
So, and as we all know, James Gunn loves to put his friends and family in his movies and shows. I think there was actually a criticism of his wife showing up in like everything.
Yeah,
They,
that's something too.
so it's just like
But
I don't mind. It's like why wouldn't you put the people you know, give them roles in your movies and shows? But
yeah,
uh,
definitely.
uh, so yeah, seeing her show up in like the DC stuff, I enjoy it and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And and
definitely.
and they, I guess not really a spoiler, but she shows up at the end of this one too.
Oh,
So
that doesn't surprise me.
yeah, so
But in
yeah,
but in getting back to that and final thoughts on that, I do think while it does suck because it's just discontinuing from things that routes that they were going before, at least stuff that I was excited to see. I did want to see Black Adam come back again, even though like I was
hmm
like, oh yeah, I enjoyed it, but I know that this a lot of people aren't gonna like this movie and a lot to criticize it. But also to like building up towards Superman and how like the conflict that they were gonna have, but also to Shazam because I'm like, it still seems a little bit weird that these two like don't have that history in the comics, but yet they're building up towards them because obviously Superman being the most powerful character. But I did want to see that Shazam Superman versus Black Adam confrontation that was
Yep.
inevitable. But overall, like I think it's finally time that Warner Brothers had someone to helm the direction and where this was all going to go, as opposed to just like throwing darts blindfolded and hoping for the best. Because that's something that was, it's 2023, and at that time the DCEU was going for 10 years and they didn't have anybody. And I'm like, this is that's exactly where I think things are going wrong, because there's just no cohesiveness and there's no structure lined out for where things are going to go, or at least a plan. Like it just seemed like they were doing whatever and hope and seeing what worked. And then once Aquaman came out and did $1 billion, they were like, oh well, and Wonder Woman was critically well received and box office success. Also, they said, oh, we're gonna discontinue with share films and team up movies. We're gonna focus on solo films. So that just shows like all the disarray that was going on with Warner Brothers at that time. So while
Yeah.
I do want to see Henry Cavill back again, I am excited for the future, and especially with these projects. And I think Batman: The Brave and the Bold has to be at the top of my list, is because I really want to see that dynamic between Batman and Robins.
Yeah.
That's something we haven't exactly seen, at least in the modern day.
Yeah.
So really excited for things to come, and I will keep you guys posted when other stuff is revealed. I'm just waiting to see like who's gonna be cast as Superman. That's got to be the first casting choice.
Yeah,
But
we'll
moving
see.
on from that, so I know it's just because we were supposed to do this review a long time ago. Obviously, it didn't happen, but we're not going to spend too much time on it, obviously, just because this movie came out almost 3 months ago. But final thoughts on Quantumania?
Quantumania. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a cool movie. It was really interesting to see a movie just like not part of the greater MCU because they're in the quantum zone the whole time,
Yeah,
and to kind of see Kang uh do more than just like the last episode of Loki. Uh I know it's a different variant, but the same, like you see this villain kind of start um building up, right? Across the whole MCU. And yeah, I thought it was cool. It's definitely an Ant-Man film. It's not the best MCU film. But overall I enjoyed it. I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. It wasn't the greatest movie, but I thought the effects were really cool. They kind of like had these really funny characters throughout. Like they're not really aliens; they're like microorganisms. But regardless, they were just really funny to see, and it was almost this like sci-fi fantasy, like a cross between the two. And yeah, I thought it was cool seeing Scott Lang in that position. Obviously, seeing the relationship with his daughter, that building up, and having her eventually, I'm sure she's gonna come into her own as stature, right? That's who she is in the
definitely.
comic books.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's gonna be really fun to see that play through. I know there was a lot of criticism on how can Ant Man beat Kang if Kang is supposed to be set up as this like all powerful dude.
that's one of the biggest ones, honestly.
But I think it made a lot of sense because within the quantum zone, like Ant Man and the Wasp and just everyone that was there, his whole family, they have a better idea of what they can and can't do in the quantum realm. And because
Exactly,
Kang doesn't have really like the powers that he's used to having, and he's just kind of there powerless. So I think it
exactly,
made a lot of sense that he actually beat him, and the whole idea of him saying it comes is he says in the trailer too, like I don't need to win, you just need to lose. Like that's a
exactly.
very Ant-Man thing to do. and yeah, and the ending was really interesting too, where he's just kind of like, wait, am I like, am I really like back? Like, what's going on? Like, he's like going through his head, like, what just happened? And he's going a little crazy at the end. So I think that's really interesting. It's almost like kind of how in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, where he was kind of the main person that came back and was like, "Hey, this is how we fix this." I feel like he might be that for the next Avengers film too, where he's just like, "Hey, I've been to the quantum zone. This is how we fix this," kind of thing.
Exactly.
So we'll see. And people seem to forget that Ant-Man, that Scott Lang is actually really smart. Like he's like a master's level electrical engineer, and
I would say he's
he knows
more. I
what
mean,
he's doing.
he's still intelligent, but I would say he's more resourceful. I think we saw that in the first
Yes.
Ant-Man film when he was
Yeah.
able to figure out like how to get into the door,
Yeah.
how to break it down. So I think he's still incredibly intelligent, but I say he's more resourceful and he's like on the fly, like able to quickly solve
Think on his
problems
feet.
right
Yep.
away. So yeah,
Yeah. So
but
yeah,
overall,
7 out of 10.
I did like this movie, but I see exactly like where those criticisms come from. This is a very fun film, and I enjoyed it, and especially because it's a cool introduction to Kang, and we see Jonathan Majors really explore his range and come off like the way his performance came off to me was almost Shakespearean in the way he talks, like not exactly coming off like super English, but some of the way he talks, like it feels like very Shakespearean. And I think the
Yeah.
thing with me is how he differs from Thanos. Like we saw someone who's completely different in that he plays off people's desires and what they want to get them to do his bidding. Obviously, if it's as a last ditch effort or if worse comes to worse, he's gonna fight and he's gonna throw down. But he likes to tug on those threads and pull off of what people want out of life, and he knows how to get them to do his bidding. So I think he comes off as a very intelligent being, and he definitely like a sociopath, and he definitely knows like how to talk to people, and he's very charismatic. And I think it's a cool introduction for him. The only thing where I see those criticisms, or the biggest one for me was that this movie aspires to Avenger level energy, but it's intended to be a solo film. So I think that's the only thing. Like, wait a minute, if this character if he's able to beat Kang, then why is it like when he comes around, like why is he going to be a problem for anybody else or any of
Yeah.
the other like powerhouses in the Marvel universe? But also too, I think that I kind of like the thing where I'm thinking about is also too in the comics, Kang is known for making it appear he's defeated and then coming back stronger. So that's
Yeah.
also too like a friend of mine was like, I think I'm hoping that's what they're kind of playing off of, this whole idea that like, oh, he's defeated, but yet he's like regathering himself and come and figuring out a plan to come back stronger. Obviously, we know this is not the end of Kang, but as far as like in terms of story, that's where I think people like they were trying to get at. But I think that's the thing I would
That's
say too, is
interesting.
just like because we know that because we're comic book fans, we know how powerful Kang is, but as far
Yeah.
as like the broader audience who doesn't know about this character, this is the first time they're seeing him, they're going to see that and be like, wait, Ant-Man beat him. Why is he going to be an issue for Spider-Man? Why is he going to be an issue for the new Captain America
Yeah.
or Winter Soldier? Anybody else?
People forget how strong Ant-Man is, though.
Yeah,
Like he always gets underestimated, maybe because he's played by Paul Rudd. But man, like Ant-Man,
I think it's his gimmicky also. Like
yeah,
Ant-Man
yeah,
is powerful. Ant-Man is cool. Like,
yeah. Because I mean, in the comic books, like it's Ant-Man who creates Ultron, and like you think
yeah,
Tony
yeah,
Stark is like conceited and thinks he's the smartest. Like in the comic books, it's Ant-Man, right? It's Hank Pym,
Hank Pym,
but
but he's
yeah,
yeah,
but he's like brutal, and obviously this is a different version of Ant-Man and more in line with Scott Lang, but uh I think people still underestimate them and what they can do.
yeah, exactly. But like I said, like I would probably agree with you on the rating. I think it's a 7 out of 10. It's
Yeah.
not the greatest MCU film, but it's definitely not Eternals or Love and Thunder by any means.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I think maybe they should have introduced Kang in a film with other characters to show just how intimidating and powerful he is. Granted, I mean
Yeah.
he still could, and it's not like Scott beat him by any means. He was getting beat and said that like that whole thing. Like I don't have to win. We both just have to lose.
Yeah.
So it's not like he technically beat him, but I understand like people are going to see that and be like, wait a minute, this is not a character who's strong and powerful, not like Thanos showing up for the first time and just laying waste to all these Marvel characters and heavy
Yeah.
hitters.
Yeah. And I think it's important also at the end of the film, when we see the Council of Kings, it's important to remember like that council itself, yeah, there's one Kang, but there's this whole council that they might have to fight against. And that's completely different, right? Like fighting
Yeah,
one Kang versus having to stop the Council of Kangs, that's is gonna is gonna cause something crazy, right?
yeah. Which that part was really cool. I wasn't expecting to see that, and that also too. I'm sure Jonathan Majors was just like, like
Yeah.
just at the chance of what he was going to be able to do and all that. And also talking on that, obviously there's something else that needs to be mentioned with this too, just because of recent events and what's happened. But Well, do you think Marvel Studios might be in a difficult spot with the controversies surrounding Jonathan Majors? Could they be
Yeah.
forced to recast him if details come out that don't clear his name?
Uh, I think so. I don't know. I'm a little torn on this because obviously I'm very much for innocent until proven guilty. Um, I feel like studios and such just follow the same, and but even like we see the Flash movie that's going to come out, and initial views of it, people saying are really good, and we're talking about Miller, and
Exactly.
everyone
Yeah,
knows what they did, right? And that was proven to he like Ezra actually did those things and was arrested and all that stuff. So I don't know. Like with Jonathan Majors, I don't think we were stuck with him as Kang. Um, Especially because now we have variants. I think it's pretty easy to rewrite a lot of it.
exactly.
And honestly, they haven't even started filming on the like Kang Dynasty.
Kang Dynasty, yeah.
So I don't think it's too far off where they can actually just write off Kang, kill him off. Like, so I think it was the guy from Comics Explained actually said this on Twitter, and I thought it was a really cool idea. Is like just scrap Kang if it comes out that Jonathan Majors is guilty, and you can bring in like Doctor Strange and have him kill off the whole council of Kangs. And now you have Doctor Strange set up as the big bad, and he just took out all the Kangs. Because in the comic books, there is like Doctor Strange does do that because the Council of Kangs is too strong, and and that would just set him up as even stronger than Kang was. And then there wouldn't be a problem with Ant Man having beaten Kang. But
Couldn't
I,
they do something maybe with Doom? I think could have worked too. Doom can somehow destroy the
oh,
Council of Kangs, or
yeah. So I think they could do it. I think they could rewrite it and just write out Kang from a lot of these stories. Um, and I know a lot of people were kind of saying, well, maybe we should just go through and recast him. And recasting would work too. I don't think we're not stuck with Jonathan Majors. I think he's a
yeah,
great actor. He obviously did really well. In the Loki series, and I liked him in Quantumania, and he's obviously he has Creed 3 and all these other accolades now, but he's not irreplaceable, right? Like we've replaced characters in the MCU before with other actors, so it's possible. I don't think he's as established yet, where if we switch him out, people will get mad,
definitely.
right?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, that's the whole thing about it. Like in the very beginning, his party was saying that he was innocent, but like the I know at the scene there were reports that the woman had scratches on her or had bruising on her, and there's conflicting things going on because it's like kind of like a he said she said. He's also saying that he has text proving his innocence or saying that the girl said, "Oh, there wasn't a confrontation or there wasn't a fight." We're not here to speculate. I just this whole idea like if when the details do come out, if it's not proving his case, and I think that's what's going on with where Marvel Studios is. I think they're just waiting back and saying, okay, we'll see how this plays out. If it comes out
Yeah,
that he is was the aggressor or he did do these things, then they're gonna just cut him, obviously. And that's like the thing because he was dropped by his agency, he was dropped by his agent. So I'm like, I would really hope not, but obviously if it comes proving that, then it would be difficult to defend him and say, oh, I still want to see him around, or like it would be difficult to say, oh, well, he still deserves to be around. He's a great actor, but as you said too, he's not like Robert Downey Jr. or he's not
yeah,
like one of those like a Chris Hemsworth or something like that. One of those established characters or box office successes, you know. So it, like I said, we would like to see him back, but it'd be a way, especially like with this whole multiverse saga. It's easy to just rewrite and kind of go a different direction. Like we said, Doom is coming, and Doom is also one of the most powerful villains
yeah,
in the Marvel universe. So it'd be easy to just like, hey, well, why don't we just do Doom killing off the Council of Kang somehow? I mean,
yep.
that'd be probably pretty easy to do, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, and we're even talking about like some other characters that are being going be portrayed by other actors. Like, um, I don't know if you've heard the rumors around the Fantastic Four, right? Like John Krasinski isn't going to play Mister Fantastic.
Oh, we knew that going in, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like everyone loved it, and it was like a fan cast. Everyone wanted it, and it's like okay, now we're going to get a different actor to play this. And I know some people are still like, some people are upset, but I'm like, it's fine. Like,
It happened.
it happens. Yeah.
You didn't say you wanted John Krasinski as the Reed going forward. You just said you just wanted to see him
Yeah.
once.
Exactly.
As Doctor Strange says, be careful what you wish for.
Right.
But so yeah, we don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully, we get to see him around. But if it ends up going south for him, then it's inevitable at this point what is going to happen. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see the details and what his case brings out. And
Yeah.
moving on from that, we got a couple trailers to discuss. So the biggest one being we got two full trailers for The Flash. It looks like it's going to be a great film, and Michael Keaton easily slides back into his role as Batman after 30 years. I mean, hearing him say I'm Batman like actually sounds better than it did 30 years ago, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And early buzz is it could be one of the best comic book films. Thoughts, predictions on the hype? Do you buy into it? Are you just more I'm gonna wait and see before it?
I buy the hype. Flashpoint is one of my favorite comic books, and obviously is one of the more important uh, comic book events, crossover events in the DC universe, and not obviously not just in the movies, but in the comic books themselves. And the animated movie, I love it, like the
Oh, it was
Flashpoint.
great.
Um, so I'm excited for it. I saw the trailers. I'm like, this is gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Edra, despite their issues, they're a great actor, right? So yeah, I think it's gonna be
Definitely.
good, and obviously seeing Keaton as Batman is great, and seeing Keaton be able to actually move around in a Batman suit versus like the neck thing and all that, and seeing his version of Batman now with the effects that we have today is just really
Like
cool.
so much better,
Like
right?
the
Like
when he jumps down and lands, and I was like, oh man, like how cool would it have been to see him do that decades ago, but
exactly.
seeing it now is just as good. It's awesome. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and I think it's gonna be a better multiverse story than Doctor Strange was,
Definitely.
and I don't know if James Gunn had a hand in the post production of this, but hopefully he did, and that way it'll be good setup for the rest of the films to come. So if it's this transition point, um, I think it'll be really good.
Right. Andy Muschietti is a great director, so right off
Yeah,
the bat, I knew this is probably going to be a good film, and it's looking like it does have potential to be one of the more memorable comic book films. I'm excited for it and everything going on for it, just the effects and the way everything looks, and even just the updates to the Flash's suits look like
yeah,
something ripped straight from the comics. So I know like that was something once we saw like early for the Flash in Justice League was a more mechanical design, but also too I'm like, well, he built it himself, so it's going to be. And Barry is not someone who's massive like a scientist by any means. I mean, forensic investigator, yeah, but as far as like mechanical engineering and building and stuff like that, that's not his forte. So I already knew I was like, okay, well, if he built this himself, that's still cool. And obviously, with just
yeah,
whatever he had access to. But I thought it, like, as far as like, I'm like, I just want to see like a classic design or look for the Flash, and we're getting it now. So I think that's going to be really cool. I don't exactly know like how it's going to play into this whole like with the other Barry when he comes in. I don't know if that's something set up to like where it's looking like that's going to be a Barry from like I don't know if it's going to be like a younger like it has to be like from another dimension or another world, right? Because it can't be like his younger past self. Because I mean, they both look like they're the same
they look
age or
the same.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be a
So I'm,
different universe.
so I'm wondering like how exactly, or did he like run over there somehow, or somehow get mixed
Yeah,
up? That's the only thing I'm wondering where the how
yeah,
did the other Barry like comes
or
into
maybe
play
he
into the
might be
story.
from Keaton's universe.
He could, but we don't exactly know how because he's supposed to
Yeah,
be the Batman of that world now, right? He's supposed to have replaced Ben Affleck, or
Ben Affleck shows
at
up in
least
the trailers though.
but I think that's supposed to be like at the beginning of the movie. Like the rumor is Ben
Uh,
Affleck only appears in like 5 minutes of the movie, so I think he's supposed to be Batman of that world that Barry created, that alternate
mm,
Flashpoint world that he created.
okay.
So, like I said, going into it, I'm like, I have a lot of questions, and we're seeing
Mm.
Supergirl. Her
So
design is obviously ripped from something more reminiscent
yeah,
of Injustice with her look. So, I think it's Overall, I'm really excited for it, and
yeah,
I do think this is going to be like one. And seeing Michael Keaton back in this role, and like how he just it's not even like a lot of people were wondering and skeptical, like Keaton is in his 70s now. Like, what is he going to be able to do? And granted, now obviously with technology, and I would assume like anything involving him moving is going to be stunt doubles. With him in the suit, I mean, he's not a decrepit old man by any means. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it's still going to fit and it's still going to work for what they're going
Yeah.
for. And he just looks awesome in the suit, honestly.
Yeah. I wonder if Michael Keaton isn't playing his original Batman. I wonder if he's playing Bruce Wayne's dad, like in the animated film.
Oh wow, I never thought about that.
Because then
I think they
he
did
would be an older Batman, and and it's the whole idea of Bruce Wayne actually died, right? And so his dad becomes Batman, and his mom becomes the Joker.
because I think did they call him Bruce in the or has he been revealed to be Bruce Wayne?
I
Have
don't
they
know.
said that or
I don't know. I need to look at the trailer again.
I think that
I
he
just
is
thought of this right now.
that would have been cool, especially because a while back Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who played Bruce's father in the DCEU,
Yeah.
he had said like he would be interested in doing or returning back as Thomas Wayne. I
Yeah.
think that was the route they were supposed to go originally. That he was reported to be in talks, but then once it was revealed they were going to be doing Michael Keaton coming back, that plan got cut right
Got
away.
scrapped. Yeah.
So, and you addressed it a little bit, but now I definitely want to hone in on it now, and it definitely warrants a discussion. Is it unsettling to support this film with all the disturbing crimes Flash actor Ezra Miller was involved in, as they haven't really seen any repercussions or truly been held accountable? How would you feel if he was to continue on as the Flash?
um, I don't know how I'd feel if Ezra continues as the Flash. Um, I think I would still support it just because that's just one person involved in this entire project, right? Like there's so many writers involved, obviously directors, everyone that you see in the credits. There's so many people involved, and I'm not just
Thousands of
going
people,
yeah,
thousands.
I'm not just going to these movies and paying to watch these movies to support the main actors. I'm supporting like the whole production team, everyone that made it. I always stay for the end credits, right? Like it makes sense to go and watch it for all those people too. Um, I think DC's gonna do with Ezra what they want, and I'm still gonna go watch this film. I have no issue separating that the actor from the character, and I know a lot of people have issues with that sometimes, or like you've heard it before, people can't separate like a musician's real life from their music. But I have no problem with that either. I can listen to an artist and just listen to the music without thinking about who they are as a person. So
Right.
in the same way, I can do that with a movie, and I can go and support it. I'm gonna go watch this movie regardless, and um, yeah, because there's just so many people involved. It's not just Ezra.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, it is unsettling, and I do have a little bit of a dilemma with it. Like I said, I think this is going to be a great film, and for all their troubles, they are a very talented actor. I will
Yep.
say that. It's just the whole thing. It's not like this is a case where they robbed somebody and then got caught. Hey, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong. I'm not well right now in terms of my mental health, or I was addicted to substances for a while, and it's not
Mhm.
one of those things like, oh, okay, it's just more like it got progressively disturbing and more extreme.
Yeah.
And there's a certain things like it's hard for me to be like, okay, I can separate this from the actor because this wasn't that extreme or wasn't that bad or wasn't that dire. But the most disturbing part of what they did is something where it really grinds my gears, or I'm really like, this is not something like I can just look away and say, oh, okay, that was you were in a wrong state of mind, or you weren't in the right way of thinking or something. But I feel like that in a sense. I understand what you're saying. It's just the whole thing. It makes it a little bit difficult when it's the lead actor, somebody who's represents this film and is at the forefront of everything that they're doing, and you see them all the time, obviously in the marketing and all of the trailers, and it's just hard to be like, I see this and I'm like, oh man, you remember what this person did? You remember all the stuff that they're involved in, and more so because I think with me, it's because there really hasn't been any accountability or any kind of responsibility. Yeah, they had a press conference and they said they didn't deny it. They also didn't exactly say that they're guilty of anything. It's more like, hey, I'm not well right now. I'm going to be going seeking treatment. But as far as that, I'm like, for me, I think what would calm my kind of concerns about it was if I'm hoping that this person doesn't I'm hoping they don't come back as a Flash. I thought it would have been a very mature, responsible thing to do to say, hey, with everything going on, I'm not going to focus on my acting career. I'm going to let somebody step into this role as a Flash, somebody who deserves it. I'll come back in a couple years. I need to go get my mind right, and I need to go just be right with myself, because obviously somebody who was escalating in those kind of terms with their problems and their situations, there's obviously mental health is at play. Also, there was just massive substance issues going on. If you saw them in
Yeah.
interviews, you know that too. So I'm actually really hoping that they don't come back, because then I think that's probably the wisest thing for them to do, and that would show actual accountability and that they understand the consequences of their actions, and they
Mhm.
understand the pain that they were causing, and they understand, like, hey, I need to be held accountable. You talk about holding yourself accountable, being responsible, but then you go back into doing this and say, like, I think
Yeah.
that's very hypocritical to be like, you hear that all the time, but are people really willing to accept accountability and really willing to accept
Hmm.
responsibility? So that's my whole thing about it. Like I said, I this is going to be a great film. I'm going to go see it. It's just a little bit unsettling for me in those kind of terms.
That's fair. Yeah.
Definitely. So I guess we'll wait to see what's going to happen. Hopefully, we'll get a recasting, but at least right now, Warner Brothers is speaking out in support of him. So it kind of seems unlikely at this point,
Hmm.
honestly, which is very
Yeah.
sad.
We'll see.
And another trailer we got to cover too is we finally got one for Blue Beetle. This looks like it'll be a fun film. The suit looks great, and lead Jolo Maradueno, Miguel from Cobra Kai, brings a lot of youthful energy to the role. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm excited for it. Obviously, I'm always for Latino representation in comic book movies. But regardless, this was once when this was announced, it was one of the projects I was more excited for. And seeing the first trailer come to fruition, uh, it's awesome. It seems like kind of a cross between maybe like Iron Man and Spider Man, like with the suit.
Yeah, that's exactly Jaime Reyes. If you were gonna really summarize Jaime Reyes, I think that would be the perfect
Yeah,
analysis, honestly.
and so I'm really excited for it. I think it's gonna be really fun. Seems like probably gonna be a little more family oriented too. And but yeah, I'm excited for it. And Blue Beetle's like really not. A lot of people don't really know who he is, and he's pretty badass character in the DC universe. So
Yeah,
it's gonna be. I'm excited for it. That first trailer just got me hyped all over again for it.
definitely. And I feel the same way too. Like just seeing like like once it was announced that he was cast as his character, like I think when we talked about it with Jimmy and Ruben, we were just like, oh, it was
Yeah,
really like one of those casting choices. You're like, this is like really emulating the levels of like Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans or Hemsworth, where they were just so perfect in their roles, and you're just like, oh,
hmm,
like it was something I didn't exactly think about, but once like someone had said it out loud, and once it was in the universe, I was like, oh crap, that's just a perfect picture, perfect casting. Like you couldn't ask for
yeah,
anything better, honestly. So it looks like it's like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun and bring that youthful vibe and that whole Iron Man meets Spider Man, but more so in terms of like an alien suit and not something that was made by hand or made in
yeah,
person. So this is a character
or
who's
like
actually been
Venom.
around for a long time, who dates back to I think the Silver Age, if I'm not mistaken, with Dan Garrett, and then the second Blue Beetle, Ted Kord. Actually, Jaime is the third Blue Beetle in continuity. A lot of people don't know that, but this is a character, I would say, ever since Young Justice in the past 10, 15 years, he's become more popular. So it's cool to see him get his time to shine in the spotlight. It was actually really cool that we did get nods to Dan Garrett and Ted Kord on the ship that ship is that we see at the end of the trailer is actually Ted Kord's ship. It's called the Bug, and you saw the two
Hmm.
costumes you saw in the background. I think when Jaime was like looking at a monitor, you see it like in the left side of the screen. right
Yeah.
before George Lopez says, "Oh, Batman's a fascist," you see like there you see Dan Garrett and Ted Kord's costumes back there. So I thought
Okay.
that was really cool and a cool little nod to his origins and a little just a nod. It's just cool when you kind of have like those Easter eggs that pay homage to what came before. Like I said, that's something where really big for me with like a lot of stuff that we're seeing nowadays is have your creative liberties, do what you want, but understand what came before and have the respect for its origins because at the end of the day, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
I'm excited. It should be
yeah,
fun.
definitely. This is going to be a lot of fun, and yeah, man, I think it's probably one of the films I'm really looking forward to this year, and
Yep.
it's going to be great. And then, last but not least, the final trailer that we have is actually one I am also super excited for, and I had my skepticism early on, but TMNT Mutant Mayhem. And like I said before this, and when the early designs were revealed and we saw the turtles, I was like, everyone was like, I don't know, man, this looks a little bit weird, but it looks awesome. And I think the thing what really set the tone right from the start was that it's set to "Can I Kick It" by a Tribe Called Quest.
Yep.
Me, I'm a big Tribe Called Quest fan, so I'm like, I'm already sold. The animation style is definitely inspired by the Spider Verse, so that was a cool little thing.
Yeah.
I didn't exactly get that. I didn't get that idea from that first design that we had seen, but seeing it all play out, we're like, oh, this is definitely very into the Spider Verse, and it makes sense as being like comic book characters and how successful that film was. So I think that's exactly where the inspiration came from. And this is also the first time that the TMNT are voiced by teenagers, which is cool. A lot of people forget that they're teenagers, so the fact that this movie is really going to be honing in on that aspect, I think, is really cool and something that a lot of people I think forget and don't exactly realize. Not only that, but the rest of the voice cast is perfect. Obviously, we have Splinter is going to be voiced by Jackie Chan. That is just perfect, also. And what about you? Are you excited for this version of the TMT, or do you have those?
Yeah.
You still have doubts about it?
No, I'm excited for it. Obviously, having a 4-year-old at home, he's really into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right now. And honestly, we rewatched that show, the not the show, the movie that came out on Netflix not too long ago, and that was really cool. It was really cool animation. It's a really good story. And yeah, I just keep going back to it. And he watches the shows. He even watches the older movies. So I'm excited to watch this one with him, right? And and I'm with you 100%. Being able to see them as actual teenagers is uh unfortunately a breath of fresh air because they're supposed to be teenagers the whole time.
In
and
the
but
namesake, it's the
yeah,
first part of
right.
their namesake.
And seeing their like the voice actors and stuff, like it just makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. It's gonna be fun, and yeah, I'm just here for the ride.
Because obviously with me, I felt so strong about this because aside from Batman, TMNT is probably the second, or well, I don't even know how I would rank it, but definitely my top in terms of comic book characters and comic book worlds and universes that I love.
Mm,
So I think from the very beginning, it just was a little bit what really caught my attention was that Seth Rogen had talked about this. Obviously, he serves
yeah.
as a producer, and that's one of the things he had mentioned where I was a little bit intrigued by the premise of it because that was something he really wanted to focus on, especially about like the kind of movies that he made with like Super Bad and those other like coming of age kind of comedic teenage movies. I was like, okay, I think he's actually the perfect person to kind of understand the idea. Granted, I don't think he was involved in the script or anything, but as far as like pushing it to get made
Yeah.
and producing it from that standpoint and understanding like this is the angle that I want to play, something we haven't exactly done before, something that hasn't been seen before, I think was like you said, like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I think the thing is, I actually see a lot of instances where they're paying homage to other sources with the turtles or
Mm,
other forms of media with the turtles. Like their designs actually feel very reminiscent of the 1987 cartoon. With like
mm,
they got the not the all their wristbands, elbow pads, and knee pads all match the color of their headband, and
yeah.
the belts have the first name of the first letter of their name on it. So obviously Leo has an L, Raphael has an R.
Hmm.
So I really got that sense that like they were really like looking forward to like, okay, what is it? And apparently I think the animators looked at like those Playmate designs from the toys and said they were using that as inspiration. So those obviously came from the show too. So well, those like were released in conjunction with the show. So I really, from the start, I'm like, and about you, but for me, like I really think like they look best when they have like their matching their wristbands and their elbow pads and their other pads to their headband. Like sometimes it's
Yeah,
even portrayed as like brown, but I'm like, I think it just looks better like when they all have the same,
their
when they're
color.
all wearing that
Yeah,
same their color. Like that looks cool. Not only that, but Leo is the tallest, so which makes sense. He's the leader. Raphael, he has. If you notice, like his shell on the front has scratches, and the back is actually his shell is the widest and the biggest. So I'm thinking like that, and he's missing a tooth. So I'm thinking like, okay, that's meaning more like they're showing that he's aggressive and he's like the roughest and the toughest out of his brothers.
yeah,
I also thought it was an interesting design choice because all of the turtles, with the exception of Raph, have just like the headband, but his is like a full bandana or like a pirate kind of hat or something.
hmm
I thought that was an interesting choice there. One of the things that I thought was really cool, where those little like intricacies and those little things that those little details, is that all of their weapons, their handles were all carved out of wood. So if you see like the swords, the Leo swords, his hilts, it's wood, and then also same thing with Raphael and Michelangelo. Their hilts and those are made out of wood, and I'm thinking like they designed them themselves. So it's just like cool, like those little nods and showing like their resourcefulness and how smart that they are. Um, One of the things that was pretty cool too was Leo on the hilts of his swords. He has consequences and rules written on them, obviously showing like how disciplined he is and how much of a leader he is. So just seeing like the design of the turtles, I really looked at that intricately and like, oh, okay, these are the things that I'm noticing. So
yeah,
I also thought like that was a cool little thing that they're doing, and I'm like I really showing like through little small details like how different they are from one another. So this movie is going to be a lot of fun. I definitely can't wait for it, and hopefully we're going to be getting a couple more movies too, because I think this is going to be a very successful movie.
yeah.
Definitely paying homage to like source material, but also being its own thing, and that whole aspect on really honing in on the teenage part. And we already saw that play out, so that's going to be cool.
Yeah. Um,
Eh,
on the subject of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, did you hear about the new game that's coming out?
yeah, exactly. We were actually going to mention that right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dude, I'm so excited for it. Based off the last Ronin, which you actually recommended to me. So that
And
was
I can't. Did you read it? I don't know if
I
we talked
did.
about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's such a good.
without
It's good.
without spoiling it, like how did you like it?
That is one of the best comic books I've ever read. Like, it's insane, and it's such a interesting premise, right? And is in the video game is gonna be the same premise. I wonder if it's gonna follow the same story, right? But the
Well, yeah, because that's what I was gonna. Because the reason we found out about this, it was revealed by Doug Rosen, who's the
yeah,
senior VP for games at Paramount Global. He confirmed that this game was in the works and that it's going to be based off of The Last Ronin. And he said that it's going to be authentic to the story, obviously going to be a darker and more mature take on the IP, as well as being a AAA third-person action role-playing game similar to God of War. I don't play God of War, so I don't exactly that's not something that I understand, but everything that I mean, God of War has been going on for what 20 plus years, and it's
yeah,
one of like the most acclaimed video games of all time. So I think that means that it's in good hands, or at least that's like a good thing that they're doing.
yeah. It's really cool because so the God of War games are basically like you start playing it through the hack and slash to a certain extent, but you get like weapons throughout the game that you equip, and then you kind of like learn to use the new weapons and use which weapons to use with which enemies, and you just play through the stories and you fight against these big bosses. It's really boss centric in a way, where the story kind of goes through as you're fighting bosses. So, very similar to the comic, right? Where you have the one turtle that's left, and he has the weapons of his brothers. So, I think the idea here is going to be you can probably switch out through the different weapons and use the correct weapon, or you go and find the weapons and use the correct weapon depending on which enemy you're fighting. So, from a video
That's
game standpoint, it makes so much sense.
yeah.
And yeah, especially I know we're super excited for the movie and to be like teenagers, but this is seeing a video game like this in the darker sense, and seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in that light too, just be just be really cool to see.
So that's where that's the thing I think what is very intriguing about the Ninja Turtles, because in the thing about the Last Ronin, it takes them back to the roots. When they first,
Yeah,
their original conception that designers Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman had was a darker take, a very, very darker take, because it
yeah,
was parodying comics of the time. Obviously,
yeah,
you had Daredevil and you had like other anthropomorphic beings at the time. The Last Ronin, I think, served as, I mean, I'm sorry, The Last Ronin, something by Frank Miller served as inspiration, but a lot of that was just paralleling what was going on in comics at the time and them making fun of it. And that also was the reason why the action was brutal and was dark like it was. So it's interesting because you have like this take, which is authentic to the Turtles' origins, but nowadays we don't really associate that with the Turtles because we see
yeah,
them as kid friendly and because if it wasn't that angle with the show from 1987, they probably wouldn't have become as big of a juggernaut as they become
yeah,
or as massively successful as they were. So it's cool. Granted, I mean, like we talked about TMNT, Mutant Mayhem, like how that's gonna be
yeah,
cool. They're played by teenagers. Obviously, it's gonna be very kid friendly, PG. But then we hear that this is coming out, and we're like, hey, this is cool too.
yeah,
So I think like that puts it in an interesting place in terms of how you can portray the turtles and what you can do with it, because you can have like something more kid friendly, have it be authentic to the turtles, but also do something darker, more violent, and have it be authentic to the TMNT also. So I think that's like pretty cool that you can like have those things and like those are like what the origins are. You know, it's just interesting.
yeah, yeah. So excited for that.
Yeah. So well, obviously, I still wanted. One of the things was we were supposed to be doing a review on the Last Ronin. That never happened, but we definitely want to get back on track with that. Hopefully, now we'll be able to post more consistently, and that's something that I want to do. So hopefully, sometime in the future, we'll be doing a review on the Last Ronin, and I wanted to give away a copy of that comic also. So just follow us on social media, and we'll hopefully be doing that soon. So all that being said, we thank you guys so much. Like it's been really cool to get back on track and get back in action. After 6 months, this is something that I've been missing and been trying to set up for a while. And I just want to give huge gratitude and appreciation to Eric for hopping on. This is a last minute thing, and he was like, "Yeah, of course, I can do it, no problem." So
Yeah,
big shout outs to you, man. Obviously, you're always welcome on whenever you want. So
appreciate it.
thank you for coming in today, man. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. But all that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to see you guys next time. Obviously, follow us
Yeah.
on social media at Heroes and Mutants Podcast to find out and learn about updates that we got going on. So, see you guys next time. Thank you.
See ya.